This is the Harmonic Motion Podcast, a place where you, dear listener, can join with automotive aftermarket professionals as they delve into and discuss the matters which matter.
So welcome to this episode of the Harmonic Motion Podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to be talking to diagnostic guru, long-term diagnostic specialist, Jason Bowden, runs his own business down there in Torquay. I'm delighted Jason's agreed to come on the show and chew the cud and kick around some thoughts and ideas and a conversation about diagnostics, being in business, running up against problems and jobs, and just generally the way life goes when you're knee-deep in broken cars all the time. So, Jason, I really appreciate you coming on, really appreciate you agreeing to do this, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation that's about to unfold.
Hi, James. Just like to say it's an honour and a privilege to be invited to your podcast. Looking forward to it. Hopefully I can add some useful information for people out there and give them a bit of an insight into what it's like just to basically, we do diagnostics all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Having been in that boat, as you know, running that sort of business, I've got a bit of an insight, and I'm really going to be interested to hear your perspective on it. And I think also for garage owners, a lot of people that listen to the show are obviously garage owners doing general repair, and I think the conversation, the insight that you're going to be able to provide about how your business functions and the work you're doing, I think is going to probably open some eyes when we think about, what's involved. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts. Just to get going, obviously we've known each other for a number of years. We're not any spring chickens anymore, but just by way of introducing yourself to our listener, could you give us an idea about, where did it all start for you, maybe in the motor trade? How did you get going? And then sort of where did your journey take you to doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, I was always interested in motorcycles and cars. Used to spend a lot of my free time tinkering with them, fixing them when I was at school, age. I left school at 16. I wanted to work on motorcycles. That was my love, if you like, my passion, and it still is. But unfortunately, living in Cornwall, there was only a couple of motorcycle shops, and there wasn't the availability for me to be able to go and train. So I joined a scheme through Cornwall Transport Training, a YTS scheme. And I was very, very lucky to be, taken in on a garage in St. Blasey called S.E. Smith and Son. And there's three guys there, but two of them were very, very clever guys, Paul Allen and Paul Sanders. And Paul Sanders at the time was going through all the Bosch training in its infancy back then. Yeah. You're talking 1986. And he was a fantastic teacher and probably one of the cleverest men I've ever met in my life. And he took me under his wing, and he basically would go to Bosch, come back, and then spend the rest of the week showing me what he'd learned and taking me from ground up from how it should be done. And they were very particular, very professional, technicians. And no doubt I wouldn't be where I am today without that, guidance and help and time from those very, very good technicians. Yeah, no doubt.
Yes. So a proper apprenticeship in the true sense of the word, then, i.e. being shepherded by a professional tech and being sort of led along that path must have been an awesome experience. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. And obviously I was going to college as well, but because I was, my learning from these guys was way, beyond college. The college bit was almost like a day off. It was very, very easy. They basically would give me anything to do, and they just would just watch me, and they encouraged me to get in there. But they also encouraged me to do things properly, to do it right, to not cut corners, to, if it should be done that way, then do it that way. Don't look for shortcuts, and be professional, be tidy, be clean, all the things that are fundamental to doing a good job, which I learned, essentially as a young adult, or, leaving childhood. So those kind of skills I learned, no doubt, to my luck really in being placed at a very, very good garage with some very, very good technicians. Yeah.
Yeah, goodness me. And how long were you then at the S.E. Smith? How long did that?
I was there 2 years until the YTS scheme ran out. Unfortunately, they didn't have the facility to take me on full time. So from there, I left and, I was quite into Fords at the time. So I kind of wandered into a Ford garage in Bodmin and said, have you got any jobs? And, they were like, well, what can you do? And there was a XR3i there with cage electronic fuel injection. This is a true story. There was a couple of people stood around it basically going, what's wrong with this? And the boss was talking to me and he wasn't that keen to begin with. And I suppose like I am now, I'm a bit cocky and overconfident. And I was like, well, I can fix that. And he was like, what do you mean you can fix that? I said, I can fix that because I've been learning all about cage electronics. So, with quite a lot of bravado, he was like, okay then. So I basically came in and started checking it and everything, got it all running. And then he offered me a job there and then. And, it was just one of those happen chance things that they had a car that they'd had no training and I'd spent the last 2 years working on this system. So to me, it was everyday stuff. So yeah, then that's how I ended up working for a Ford garage, which I believe I worked there for 11 years. Again, some very good people I worked with. The foreman at the time became a very good friend of mine. And this is a strange one as well, is no one wanted to go training. Didn't want to go. There was Ford offering training course now. It's because, they're like, does anyone want to go on a training course? I'll go. So I was spent a lot of time, I believe at the time, Daventry's Ford Training College, which was, I believe, one of the biggest training colleges, certainly in the UK, if not Europe. And I was back and forth to Daventry once a month. Went whole way through the technician program. Again, just luck really. No one else wanted to go. I was very keen to learn and I was just absorbing all this information and again, getting, schooled by some very, very clever people, which is where I got my, grounding in diagnostics. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. It's funny that in that same era, we must have crossed paths because I spent a couple of years at the local Ford dealer here and the situation was exactly the same. I'd come from an independent garage. I then got a job in Volkswagen. They were a Volkswagen and Audi dealer at the time. And, after that, I joined a Ford garage and I was there for a couple of years and the exact same self thing. I landed there and sort of I didn't really want to be doing servicing, but I was quite keen. I ended up going on a lot of the RS sort of training. So, KE, Jetronic, and then it had gone over to the Cosworths were sort of coming out in 89, 90. And I was sent on all this training, transmissions, MT75 gearbox. Like there was a training course. I go, yeah, I'm going. And all the other guys are going, I don't want to go. I'm going to have to be away from home. So it's funny, but even back then, people were reluctant to go on training. And like you, I think I took it both hands and I found the Ford training immense, actually. Some of the detail that they would go into about systems and some of the support material was just awesome. And coming from almost an independent background, you're going, I can't believe with all this information, how not easy, but how much more easy it is once you've got all the, all the nuts and bolts about how it works.
I'd also like to add to that is we're probably of the age group where we learnt our trade on points, condensers, dynamos. I was working on dynamos, regulators, and then to go right, the fuel injection and catalysts and, electronic ECUs came in right in the period, like the sweet spot certainly for me, when I was learning. Yeah. So I went through it as it happened in the motor trade. I can remember diesels coming out with Ford, 2.3 diesel Sierra, horrible thing with the Peugeot engine. Yeah. And, everyone in the workshop just ran away. Literally I don't want to touch that, and, I was on the training course again. Yeah, I'll do that. And same as you, I did the RS training, MT75, MTX75, B5, IB5 boxes, all the new model, went on the Mondeo new model launch. I just absolutely lapped up. And that's, I believe, one of the things, if you want to succeed in this trade, you have got to be very receptive to learning and to take on new skills and not be like, I don't know how that works. You've got to go, why does that work? And I need to know how that works. For me personally, if I look at something I don't understand how it works, I must find out how that works because I need to understand it and why is that there and what's that doing? And certainly with diagnostics, if you've not got that mindset, that sort of, I need to understand this, I need to, get into this, then I don't believe you will ever make a good diagnostic technician because you won't have that inbuilt sort of need passion to get in and do it, because if you take the learning as it's a chore or you don't want to do it, then you're not going to learn it, and you're not going to be enthused by it. Even today, if I came to your training course, which is excellent, by the way, I'm enthusiastic. I'm getting excited on the drive up, like, what we're going to learn, what's he going to show me? He's going to show me something new all the time. And even now at nearly 53, I'm still got that same enthusiasm I had when I was 16, still there. And I believe that's a massive part of being, in the motor trade, not so much, but especially in diagnostics and that kind of work, electrical work. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You have to have that thirst for knowledge, and yeah, we see various levels of that, but you're absolutely right. The guys that are keen do so much, I suppose, work outside of work that my wife calls it car porn. So I'll be looking at car porn, I'll be looking at stuff, and there'll be some manual, or I've got some YouTube open, or I've got a website open and I'm looking at stuff. And she said, do you not know all that stuff? I said, well, no, because I wouldn't, that's what I need to get my head around that, because I've got some questions about how that works. But people say, well, where do you go for training? Well, it just never stops. Every time I get something we don't know what to do, it's a mini training course. It's go and research. So I agree 100%. If you've not got that drive, I think it's an open mindset that actually you're expecting to come across a challenge, and you're expecting to have to go and find out, and then you're going to be revved up when then you get one and you can do it. And I think that's part of the game. That I agree. That's what keeps me interested. And we're of a very similar age. I still love coming to work. I still love the challenge of something broken. Yeah.
Yeah. That again, that's the bit that about my job now. Sometimes I go and work and but when I fix a problematic, a situation or problematic fault that other people can't find, or something new, I still get that satisfaction. And I do tend to sort of pride myself in I'm not going to be beaten, which sometimes to detrimental effect because you spend way too long on it. But I just cannot accept defeat. I must figure this out. I must do it. And there's a lot of times I've lost quite a considerable amount of labor because I have had to learn how it works or invent tests to do it. But then I look at that in the long term. It's like, but next time, that'll pay dividends because I'm going to go straight to that test and then go from there. So yeah, absolutely. Everything, I think, like you say, pretty much on the same page there.
Yeah. I term those as on the job training, and they're courses I pay for. So exactly that. We get a job in that's difficult. I put my time into it. So I'm paying myself by the loss of labor. I put that towards research and development. That's actually giving me, and like you say, that's giving you the head start the next time round. That's a learning opportunity. And it's funny, people say, do you not get frustrated that, you're in against these jobs all the time and the problems? And I guess this is for you, a question. You can be relentless that you've got another broken car and something else that's weird and difficult because, somebody's had a look at it. Is that the challenge that it makes it still interesting is overcoming the weirder the better, almost in a perverse way that, I get quite bored. Oh, don't send it here if it's something simple. I'm not really interested. If I'm going to find this in 10 minutes, I'm going to be pissed at you. I'm going to be annoyed because you should have found that. Only bring it if it's really quite tricky and difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's kind of me. I love the challenge. And being a diagnostic specialist, you are only ever fixing other people's problems. So by the time it gets to me, someone's already had a big headache and they've already tried this, they've tried that, they've tried the other. So you already know that you're kind of up against it, if you like. But that's where you get the satisfaction from. And also, you get the reputation, which helps your business, because if 4 or 5 garages have had a go at, say, a particular vehicle and they've spent a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, and a lot of people come to me, they're like, if you can't fix it, we don't know what to do. We're going to scrap it. So I take that as a personal sort of, I am the man. I'm going to get that. I am a diagnostic god, if you like, and I am going to fix this for you, whatever it takes. And, I do. I can't remember a time where I've been beaten other than someone doesn't want to spend the money or doesn't want to see it through. But yeah, I'm the same. If someone come in and I did it in 2 seconds flat, like a blown fuse, I'd be questioning even, basic skills. I'd be like, really? It was a fuse. There's a book in the car. It's a fuse, But yeah, so yeah.
Do you know, it's I quite, one of my favorite films is the samurai film with who's that guy, the actor, the American guy, Tom Cruise, where he's the last samurai. And there's a line in that the samurai guys are having this, they talk about battle, and actually that you've had a good death. So the honorable amount of, one samurai terminating another one is that the guy had a really good death, and that's to be celebrated. And I often look at diagnostic jobs like that the garage bringing it here has had a good death. They've tried their hardest to solve this job, and actually it's worthy. That's now a worthy competitor for me to get stuck into, because they've had a good death on that. They've done all of the stuff, and there's something queer about that. But funny when you were saying that line from that movie just sprang into my mind. Yeah, they had a good death on that diagnostic job. So, Jason, you're in the Ford garage in Bodmin, and you've done a good stint of time there. So 11 years. What brought that chapter to an end? Then what led you to move on?
Well, I ended up being the workshop foreman and basically the workshop manager and diagnostic tech. And the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I wouldn't do anything but diagnostics because it was more time efficient. And this is, I think we'll go on to this later with garages not doing diagnostics to explain it better, but I was running the workshop and everything was booked out per hour. Everything's got a labor time. And I quite quickly worked out it was much more time and money efficient for just me to do diagnosis and for the guys to fit clutches service, because they were booking out 8, 10, 12 hours a day. But if they had a problem with a car, and even what I would consider a quite simple wiring problem, they could spend 4 hours on fixing an electric window, and I'd just be in there in 10 minutes and go, it's a broken earth wire. But they would spend the time. So quite quickly, we developed a system where, certain guys would do MOTs, certain guys would do clutches, certain guys would do servicing, and the workshop efficiency went up through the roof. And all I did was I basically, as soon as they got a problem, right, that's Jason's job. I just take over. And my actual hours weren't really billable per se because I was running a workshop anyway. So I'd be doing diagnosis and diagnostics and, to some extent when I left, we were sort of doing a little bit of programming, keys and stuff, the old PAT system. I was doing that in between running a workshop and I wasn't really charging my hours. My point is, it was more efficient for me not to charge any hours because I had 7 other people working flat out, charging full days, and that's where I learned that, do you know what? Diagnostics is not really something that everybody should be involved in because their skill set and time is much better used on other aspects of the motor trade. And I still truly believe that. Yeah. And then, well, my 2 bosses at the time, Mike Thomas and Clive Williams, they were getting to retirement age, and their sons had no interest in taking over the business. And I, long time, still kind of in my heart of hearts wanted to work on motorcycles. And I'd known Mike Granger at GT Motorcycles for quite a while, and he was constantly trying to get me up there to work because, again, fuel injection was coming in on bikes and power valves and things like that, and their mechanics were just like, don't know. And again, none of them wanted to go on training. So I said, look, I'll come and work for you, but I want you to match my salary now. I want a company bike. But more importantly, I want to go on every single training course that's available. Because if you want me to be the best I can be, I need to be up to speed on everything. So I went to work for GT Motorcycles in Plymouth. Loved it, absolutely loved it, because I was working on motorcycles. Went on loads of with Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda, Suzuki. Went on all the training courses because I've got Master Tech status in most of them. And motorcycles are so pleasurable to work on compared to cars. It's there right in front of you. It's on a bench. To be honest, they don't really go that wrong. And they're just fun to work on. Nothing's overly inaccessible like a car. Really enjoyed that. Stayed there for about 4 or 5 years. Then I got the opportunity to move to Paignton GT Motorcycles, and I'd always wanted to live in Torbay, and as a youngster, a lot of my family did. So I took the move to Paignton GT Motorcycles, worked there for a little while, and then a better prospect come up at PGH Motorcycles. So again, I moved to PGH Motorcycles, and that's about the time when I started getting back into fixing cars. And not fixing per se. I was actually, I was quite into Subarus and Mitsubishis, and I was starting to tune them for people. I got a bit of a reputation for tuning them, not just the engines, the suspension. I'd set them up for track days, put proper suspension on, set caster camber, all that up, and mapping them as well with open source software to map the ECUs. And I got quite a good reputation for that. I got quite a lot of people bringing cars to me from near and far, and from there, because I was doing that in the evenings and weekends, from there, people started bringing me good cars with faults, and tuning cars and diagnostics, especially on the engine, is very similar, because if you understand, good tuners understand problems, and people that can fix problems with engines, especially engines, can tune a car well because they understand the principles for what the engine is trying to do. And those two definitely, I believe, mesh hand in hand. So then I started, fixing cars at home, and basically got to the point where I was so busy at home, I was doing more work in the evenings and weekends than I was in my day job, because in the winter, motorcycles kind of fall off. So for 3 or 4 months a year, you're basically doing next to nothing. So I was looking at the watch, need to get home, and, go and fix all these cars till 10, 11 at night. But I find that it was tiring, but I found it very enjoyable, so, and a lot of people, my name went around really quickly. I had a lot of people, bringing a lot of stuff to me from near and far, really. So, yeah.
And is that so? Did the home business then grew to a point where you felt it was sustainable? So did you move from motorcycles into then working for yourself, or did that stay as a bit of a side gig until it became a problem? How did you bridge, being employed and self-employed almost at the same time? What was the story there?
The motorcycle trade at the time was going through a bit of a slump, and I kind of worked out I was busy enough to, and this is not doing diagnostics. I was basically doing my track cars and track prep for people. I figured I was busy enough to kind of maybe not fill a full week up, but certainly, 2 or 3 days up with that. So I had the offer of redundancy. And I'd already been doing it at home for about 4 years then. So I had a fairly, substantial customer base. It wasn't like I just, jumped out and like, here I am and, I need some work. So I had enough customers to warrant it. I took redundancy, opened up my place, which was, my son was, he was just born, so he's nearly 15. So that was about 15 years ago. And honestly, from the day I opened the doors, I've been flat out. Honestly, flat out. I've not had a lull, except for when COVID really hit hard. And that was only because we couldn't get parts anywhere. I still had people desperate for me to work on a car. So we just couldn't work because we couldn't get any parts. So yeah, I hit the ground, running, if you like. Yeah. Yeah.
15 years. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. And you're in that the building that you currently, are in now was where you set off. That was your get-go for Bowden Auto Services. That's exactly where you're still based now, isn't it? Same premises?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I bought the leasehold on it. It was quite a long lease. I think it runs out when I'm about 63. And I figured, well, I've got the lease till 63. By that time, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go and drive a bus or something. So yeah, in essence, I outgrew the place in about a year, but it's a bit of a difficult one because we're way too busy. I've got way too much stuff. We've got way too many cars there. But on the other hand, everybody knows where I am. We're very central in Torbay. We've got 2 train stations within walking distance. We've got a bus stop. We've got the seafront. We've got the town. So from a customer's perspective, it's ideal because they can go anywhere at any time with minimum inconvenience. And Torbay's quite landlocked for property, especially for parking. And we run anywhere between 30 and 50 cars there all the time. There's, free parking all around. It's just on the road. Yeah. So, I can park a lot of cars. I'd need a big unit to park that many cars. And, I just don't believe, especially at my age, it would be really beneficial sinking a load of money into moving. I've got a good living out of it. We work hard, but I know where I am. I know what my bills are, and we've been making it work for 15 years. So why change it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you probably got it set up just so as well, haven't you? So I know I've been through two particular unit changes, and whenever you get to where you're going, you've got it, you sort of tune it to suit your business then, don't you? So your stuff all lives in a special place, and your process of cars in and cars out and the workflows and, the areas of the workshop are designed to be so. So no, I think that's a good thing, actually. Again, like you say, moving's a nightmare if you lose, your customers lose where you are. So I would fully account, it's great to be in that spot, to be known, and it works for you. Yeah, why change it? No, that's awesome. Yeah. And so if we think about the business, then what was the biggest challenge then, Jason, when you went from, being a side endeavor to then being a business? That's often a very tricky transition. When I'm talking to people that have done it, guys that are working on the side, that have got a good little sideline, that want to then move into setting their own business up. Okay, all of a sudden then it's become official. And so there is no black or grey economy. All the invoices have to be done. And once you start invoicing, then you have to start accounting for tax. If you're doing well enough, then your VAT starts to become a question. And then you've got rent and rates and overheads, and subject to what you're doing, you then start to think about employing other people, and then you've got contracts and wages. What would you say, in terms of somebody in a position like you are in now, what were the learnings that you had going from it being a semi-professional endeavor to being, right, it's Monday, we're setting up Bowden Auto Services now, lives and breathes, it's a business. What did you learn about that in the transition, Jason, that you could share with others?
One of the first things that I got, which I already had from working at home, because I'd already set up my business from home, so it was actually a ongoing business before I moved in, is I got a good accountant and a business advisor, because I can fix cars and I can run a workshop, but I don't know tax laws, VAT laws. I don't know that. And one of the things I've learned is you need to trust in another person that's good at their job, just like people trust us to fix their cars. So I got a really, really good accountant, Gary Webb, IAW. He's been absolutely fantastic. Every time I needed to know the slightest thing, I'd ring him up. What about this? Should I do this? Should I do that? And his advice has always been spot on. And you definitely need that sort of personal team in your corner in the background. I did, one of the biggest problems I had when I first started doing diagnostics and it surprised me, was the amount of investment I needed to put into actual gear. Although I'd already got some dealer tools at home at the time, I was using IDS and I had Tech 2 at home and some generic scan tools. When I started to really get into diagnosis side of it after a few months for properly, you can soon spend a lot of money very quickly to do a test, and you've got to say to yourself, am I going to use that again or that? And there's a huge investment in money in the first year. Basically everything I had, I made the decision that I was going to go for it, and I just basically went, I'll buy that, I need that. And that, it did pay off, because then I was able to do a lot of things other people can do. Also as well, I forgot to add that while I was at the motorcycle shop, when I had an inkling I was going to leave, I then started doing the Bosch courses at Denham. Yep. And I went through the whole the Bosch training program to Master Tech. And then I did also my ATA Master Tech as well. And I did the majority of that whilst I was working at the bike shop. And in my free time or holiday time, I was actually going and training. So I was, had all the qualifications and kind of knew what I was doing, if you like. So yeah, that was that. And, there's some great pieces of kit Bosch make. But when you're starting out, it's a lot of money, isn't it? It's, you can do $2 or $3 grand on one fuel injection test kit. Yeah. But the problem is, to do diagnosis properly, you need that test kit. And this is the problem I believe that a lot of garages have, is a scan tool is sold as the be all and end all, the magic box, the crystal ball, whatever you want to call it. And they plug a scan tool in. But what they don't realize is, although it might give you a fairly good indication of the fault or which area to look in, or may not, but you then need to understand the system. But more than that, you can understand it all you want. But if you haven't got the required piece of test equipment to test that system, you're stuck straight away. You've stopped. And that was in the first year. as I was getting more and more diagnostic jobs in, you can imagine I'd get a diesel job in, then I'd be like, oh, I need a low pressure test kit. Low pressure's all right. Oh, I need a high pressure test kit. And then you get something, I already had a scope, but then you'd be like, oh, I need this bit or I need that bit. And it just went on and on. Then you've got the Bosch test kit. Brilliant. I've now got a Delphi system. Now I need the Delphi test kit. And each time you're spending these big chunks of money, and if you're not fully committed, you're kind of stuck, because what you don't want in diagnostics, especially if you're doing all makes like me, or you become a specialist, is someone come in and go, oh, I can't work on that. I haven't got the piece of equipment. People don't want to hear that. They want to hear, yeah, I can do that. And this is why especially the first year, I remember there was always a brown box coming. Always a brown box coming, with something in it. And, I'd be looking at it thinking, that's a lot of money. But it allowed me to be correct, to be right. And yeah, so that's it. In the first year especially, that's one of the biggest hurdles. And if anyone's going to start a diagnosis now, you need to be prepared to spend a lot of money on kit, especially in the first couple of years.
Yeah. And by order of magnitude, you're talking six numbers nearly, aren't you? You're talking tens of thousands. We I often look at garages. We hear it really. I think the difficulty with the garage, and we'll probably come onto this because you've alluded to it earlier on. Garages think that they're doing well if they spend $3,000 on a scanner in a year. They're going, we've invested in the Diag, and you're going, hang on a minute, you bought one aftermarket scan tool that probably does either European or Japanese. You need another European or Japanese scanner, so that's $6,000, and then you need all the dealer tools for the top 10 or 15 brands out there, and all the test kit, all the high and low pressure test kit adapters. And if there's special tools for timing and so yeah, I guess probably in that first year, you're probably creeping up towards six figures, are you, for your investment, or in the first couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. About 4 years ago, I had an audit for insurance because the insurance company didn't believe how much tools I had. And there was a man down there for 2 days photographing everything. And that was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say. And it all itemized out. It was over £250,000 worth of not hand tools, diagnostic tools, timing tools, like you say, which again, you every car's got a timing tool, hasn't it? Pullers. I do a lot of specialist injector pulling and glow plug drilling and things like that. Thread restoring. Pitch to love me. If I've got a problem with an injector, even the other day I had a problem with an injector. I didn't have a specific tool, so to do it is one job, but I still rang picture and bought the entire kit. But you've got to be prepared to do that. That's what my point is. And if you're starting it with very limited funds, you're really going to struggle to equip yourself to do diagnosis. The only cravat I'd say to that is if you are a one brand workshop. So say you're BMW, you're only going to need BMW tools, and you're only going to need a finite amount of tools because you're basically working on BMWs or whatever brand it might be. But if you're doing multi-brand diagnostics, I don't even know how many laptops I've got, but I use a separate laptop for each manufacturer, mainly because I can't afford to tie them up. And also, redundancy, they're mostly tough books like battery swap to swap. And I know people putting all these diagnostic tools on one laptop, but the laptop goes wrong. Your entire day, maybe week is done. And also I buy either the laptop, or I just go on to this while we're there. If I buy a tool from Volkswagen, I'll buy the tool and a laptop from Volkswagen. So when I contact independent workshop or whatever, they can't say to me, oh, it's your laptop. Because that's what they do. So I say, well, it's not, because it's a VAS, whatever it is. And they're like, oh, right. Yeah, we can see you're using the VAS, whatever. Yeah. And the manufacturers are much more receptive to helping you, if you've got their actual, all of the package, if you like, all of the gear. Mercedes, I run full Zentry. I wouldn't do without it. It was, well, they still give people an idea. Full Zentry, when I bought it, was £12,000 plus the subscription, which is just under 2, and then a WIS subscription, which I think is $1,500 a year. But fantastic. Does everything the dealer can do. They back it up. I come in the morning, your system's backed up, updated. I don't touch it. I just leave it on. If I've had maybe 2 problems in 5 years that I've had that particular system, and a quick email or a phone call when I remember who to email, and they're on. Germany have even team viewed in, because it's the dealer tool. Team viewed in, done a complete system, fixed it, 10 minutes done, and that's to me, is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
It's worth the money. Yeah,
it is. But it's scary, for a single brand there. That's a big chunk of money to invest. And we sort of come into I suppose, I heard a saying once before that you can't be a little bit pregnant. You are sort of pregnant, or you can't be half pregnant. And I often think with the Diag, if I go back to my own business and reflecting what you've said there, the money that you have to spend you have to be fully committed to it or not. You can't be a little bit. Because people dropping off all sorts of stuff and they expect you to have the dealer tool. So, I've got a Mitsubishi or a Mazda or I've got a Ford or whatever. You have to have the resource and be geared up. And I think to underline that, the investment in being a specialist, if we just take equipment investment, if a garage is thinking they're doing well at diagnostics and they haven't spent 40 or 50,000 quid, you would have to question you're playing at it really. You've got a scanner, and I suppose it sort of comes back to then, you must look like I do. I follow the local guy's tyre van up, and he's got cam belt services, MOTs, and in the bottom, diagnostics. And he's got this because he's bought a scan tool from whoever. He's now considered, in inverted commas, he's doing diagnostics. And I think that, in a way, yes, he's true. He's pulling fault codes and looking at live data, but it sort of ruins the story or the picture. If his customer goes to him for diagnostics and he has a plug-in and he can't do it, the customer's now thinking that diagnostics is what he needs to go somewhere else, and he's thinking that that's what it's all about. It's a plug-in, it's a fault code, and it's the. And I think one of the big challenges I think for specialist services is how do we communicate that diagnostics is actually much, much bigger than just the scan tool. And as a garage owner, is it really right that you're saying you do diagnostics if you've got a single multi-make scan tool? Is that actually true, or is that's a bit of a fairy story, isn't it? You're pulling fault codes maybe. I don't know how garages maybe can pitch their service at the right level without doing diagnostics, because what does that actually mean? You're doing diagnostics.
The motor trade is as guilty as this as the public. The most common thing that people say to me when they come in is, "Oh, we've heard you've got better tools." Yes, to some extent I have, but it doesn't matter if it's a dealer tool or a EOBD code reader. They're both going to give you, say, a P0420 code, catalyst threshold. There's no more apart from some freeze frame data. There's no more there. And this is where Facebook's social media is coming very, very handy for me, because I've tried to show not only the public, but the motor trade that when we're doing diagnosis, we're not just plugging a tool in. We're actually testing it. We're going through a procedure. We're getting some information, a wiring diagram. We're doing tests with this P0420. We'd use a, gas tester, look at fuel trims. We'd be doing all, emissions analyzer. We'd be doing all these steps to get to the point of why we're generating that code. Because as we all know, most people go P0420 catalyst. I need to do cat. And that's not diagnosis. That's at best a good guess. And most of the time it doesn't need a cat. Most of the time it's an upstream problem or something else that if we have a quick look at the data and do a few tests with this equipment that's cost a considerable amount of money, we can then go, no, the fault's actually that. And that's what I've tried to show. Social media's been very, very good for that. And I do also try and communicate with garages. I personally don't work against the motor trade. I try to work with them. And I say to them, look, my favorite saying is spend 2 hours on it. Because if you haven't got where you're going or fixed it in 2 hours, then you either haven't got the understanding, the tool, or the necessary, information to fix that fault. And it's not downgrading them or putting them down. It's just giving them some advice, because I probably, and 99 times out of 100, in 2 hours, I've got to the point where I know what it is, or I might even have fixed it in that 2 hours. But at least I've got a very, very good idea of where I'm going in that 2 hours. And I don't normally spend any money on any parts, because that 2 hours is all about proving the fault and proving maybe sometimes how we can rectify that fault by putting in simulators or changing something like that. And most of the garages around me, I'm very lucky. Most of them now have got that sort of mindset where they'll have a look at the scan tool and they'll go, Yeah, that's beyond us. And then they'll just say, you need to ring Bowden's, or they'll bring it to Bowden's. It's taken probably about 7 or 8 years to get them on side with that, but it's doing everybody a favor because the customer's not wasting time and money. The garage isn't digging himself a huge pit because that guy that could have done 2 MOTs and 2 services and fitted 4 sets of brakes has just done your garage £400-500, but he spent 4 hours trying to find a fault that he still hasn't found. How do you charge that to the customer? So for garages that aren't diagnostic specialists, knowing when you just need to stop is as important as knowing when you shouldn't have started in the first place. And that's the only thing, that's one of the things generic scan tools are good for, being fair to normal garages, is it gives them enough of insight and there's enough information there to go, yeah, do you know what? I probably should leave this, immobilizer faults, something where, I program keys and cut keys. And most garages, they'll see immobilizer and they'll go, yeah, it's not for me. And they'll push it aside. And that there, the customer will like, oh, I took it to you for diagnostics. But if they explain it correctly to the customer, look, this is a very specialist job. And this is what I try to get out there, that it's a separate part of the motor trade. And customers and other garages need to think of it as a separate thing, it's not it's not a one-stop, not everybody's a one-stop shop for everything. There's several branches of paint, spray and panel beating, tires, windscreens, radar alignment now always become separate specialist parts of the motor trade in their own right. And if you haven't got the necessary things we talked about, then you should just pass that on, whether it's passed it on through yourself and you don't tell the customer and you just tell them it's done, or you recommend them to a specialist. That's, in my opinion, a much better way for people to run their business. Make money doing what you can do well quickly. Don't get over involved. And that's where your scan tool can help you out. Service resets and stuff like that. It's great for that. So, but that's my belief anyway.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? You said yourself, in your own business life, your accountant, for instance, is giving you brilliant advice, and he's got that specialist knowledge about finance and business and the rules about running a business. And yeah, you could go to night school, you could buy a calculator and a book and start doing double entry bookkeeping, but it's not your thing. You defer that specialist knowledge to somebody that does has got that special. And I think you're right. The diagnostic element, once it gets to beyond a point, I think, back to the old samurai thing, garages need to recognize when they've had a good death. That is actually, I'm at the point of that battle. I can't win that fight with that thing. I need to defer it. And you're absolutely right. I think without, your service offering, you could say perversely, actually, you're enabling garages by the specialism that you offer to maintain profitability by not getting bogged down in a job that they can't do, by not annoying a customer by fitting parts that aren't going to solve it, by not losing labour on general service and repair, which they're probably really good at. Actually, you're offering them an opportunity for enhanced profitability, and depending how the customer sent to you, keeping that customer on side. The customer may not know that you're involved and the job it comes through the garage, or if the customer is involved, you're going to offer them the solution, and the garage is going to get brownie points for putting them in your direction because you've solved the job. The customer's now happy and you're not competing with the garage, because I bet you probably don't get involved in a lot of service repair. You probably don't want tires. You probably don't want to be doing discs and pads all day. And so your service offering isn't competing with your garages, is it? You're offering a complementary specialist service.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, what you said is pretty much how I explain it to them. I'm like, people ring up, a lot of garage owners, oh, mate, can you help me out? I'm stuck at the end of it. I'm like, you stop worrying about it. Bring it here. Let me have a look at it. I'll give me a couple hours on it. I'll get back to you. Now go and make some money. Go and do what you do. And I say this to people all, it's a common thing. Go and do what you do. I'm not interested in changing oil filter, brake pads. I really don't want that work. I haven't got the room. I haven't got the facilities. I haven't fitted a tire for 20 years, it's not going to happen. I'm trained to fit windscreens. I'm actually a trained tire fitter, but I'm never going to do it because why would I? I'm sticking to what I know and what's good for me. And like you say, I really try to help garages. And even if I put something on Facebook, I will never mention a garage. I will never say who it was. Because I'm not against them. I'm working with them, but I put stuff out there so sometimes the garage that brought it over can see, and the customer can go, that's why we couldn't do that, because we needed this or that. And it's a fine line. I'm not trying to teach people I'm just trying to show the process and show why we got to that, or how we did it, or how complex it was. And that helps garages understand that sometimes they have taken too big a bite of that pie, and they should have just, pushed it away and I've had enough, So yeah, absolutely. That's it's a good way of putting it. Yeah. I'm helping them make money by giving the job to me. And then I give their customer back to them. So I get a lot of customers come in and say, "Oh, do you want to do our servicing?" No, you go back to it. They've been looking after your car for years. They're very, very good at that. And I say to customers, your garage has done the right thing. They've stopped. They're a bit like, "Oh, they couldn't fix that." No, they've done the right thing. This is very specialist, got a lot of equipment, a lot of skill, a lot of training. They haven't got that. So they've done the right thing. And I try to, the customers generally for like, "Oh, do you know what? He was right." And I explain to them, rather than their garage waste money, they've done the right thing. And everybody's happy. The garage is making money. I'm making a bit of money. The customers fix their cars fixed. It works. If we all work together, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And I guess for a garage owner that's listening, one of the things I'm thinking about some of the garages, we still do a few bits here. We've scaled it right back, but so the garage owners that we've got, when we were doing it full scale, we would learn, probably the same for you, Jason, that we would have a new customer come with a problem car, and they may be 8 or 10 hours into it, and they've got 500 or 600 quid of the bits in it, and it's a disaster. We notice the second time they come, they've maybe spent 4 or 5 hours, and they haven't got any bits into it, and they've realised that it's an issue. Maybe the third job we've got, they've spent a couple of hours, and they bailed out. And then I think that training in the relationship that you've obviously got was very similar, that we're advising the garage, try and understand when you've reached your limit. So if it's not something simple, what advice could you give to garage owners that are listening? What's a good benchmark? So would you give a time limit? Would you say
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I say. I can, like yourself probably, I can pretty much get to the bottom of any fault or a good idea within 2 hours. Obviously I've got a lot of experience, and it's all I've been doing day in, day out, basically since I left school, on cars or motorcycles. And I've got all the kit. So I've got that 2 hour window, which I book people in for. So I say to the garages, you're 2 hours. If you haven't fixed it in 2 hours, it is absolutely time to stop, because you now have lost 2 hours labour, and I might be slightly more expensive, but I'm still going to return that, we're going to get to where we need to go in 2 hours, and you can go on and make other money. And that's the best one I use. Or sometimes garages ring me up and I automatically know that it's not going to be a job for them. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, like a broken injector. They'll ring me up, "Oh, I've got this broken injector." And I've got the kit to pull it out. How much is the kit? It's $6,000. "Oh, I'm buying that. Do you want to do it?" Yeah, of course. That's what we bought the kit for. And that getting that out there, that I say to garages, a lot of garages, you can buy this kit, but for the amount of times you're going to bring that car into me a year, that brand, and the amount of money you're going to spend on training and et cetera, et cetera. Let's take Mercedes, for instance. You're an independent garage. You do servicing, MOTs, tires, et cetera, like a normal garage. You do all makes of cars. You get a Mercedes in, maybe, let's say, one a month. So you get a Mercedes in for diagnostics once a month. Is it really worth you investing £12,000 in Zentry? I know there's some pass-through system cheaper, but if you want to do it right, and then the £2,000 for the subscription to do 6 cars a year at your labour rate at £60, £70 an hour? It's crazy. It just, the maths doesn't work out. Bring it to someone like myself or yourself. We've bought the gear. That's all we do. We've got it. We've already spent it, and we're not charging you any extra to use that tool. We're just charging you our hourly rate to fix it. And if you think about the maths of it, a normal garage is madness, literally madness, trying to buy that stuff for those 6 or 7 diagnostic jobs they might need a year, and all the hoops you've got to jump through to get it. And you've got to learn the system, not forgetting that every single diagnostic tool has got its own intricacies, its own ways of working, its own, now we've got this 2-tier authentication stuff and everything else. It's just, it's just an absolute nightmare for a normal garage. So the garage owners really want to say, is it worth it? If I can't do it with my generic scan tool, and there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can turn out service lights, wind back brake calipers, all your general services stuff, then yeah, your Snap-on tool, your Auto, whatever, brilliant. Go for it. That's where you want to be with it. But stop there. When it comes to programming, immobilizers, keys, anything like that, reflashing, ECUs or complex faults, then that's where you stop. And that's where, unless you're a one make workshop, again, BMW, for instance, then in which case you would have ISTA, then yeah, go for it, fill your boots. I'd still say the 2-hour time limit applies. But what I'm saying is it's not worth these garages putting that level of investment in when their bread and butter is normal work. And if they add up even over 10 years, how many times they maybe needs entry, not used, needs entry, then it would be an absolute loss. Any decent accountant would go, you were mad buying that. Yeah. What a waste of money that was. You're just not using it.
No return on the investment. No, true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose that the one thing we haven't really touched on in a bit, we've talked about equipment in a way, but you've touched on it there, that actually every piece of equipment needs a specialist operator. Each time you touch a piece of equipment or you go to a system, you need specialist knowledge about how the system functions. Each time you reach for a test to do, you have to have had training on that system and the tool that's going to affect the test, be that an oscilloscope or some other tool. You're going to have to know how to do the test. And I think what happens is there's a pyramid of complexity that you start off with. The car's complex, right? You've left the general garage's domain of knowledge and understanding, and it's dropped into specialist. And you realize when you go to specialist, right, their base level is they've got all of this equipment and they've got all of this training, and then they don't know how to run all of these tests, which means that your application of labor is actually using a lot of skill, knowledge, and expertise in conjunction with the tools that facilitate that, the job to completion. So we mustn't, one of the questions we're going to talk about in a minute is, how did you expand your business, or how do you grow? How do you make another Jason that is able to do that sort of work? How do you, if your workload, because you're a specialist in your area, you've probably got dozens and dozens of garages feeding you work, and that comes to the point of your capacity. So how do you get to the point where you can make sure that you can take on and service the needs of your customers? How did you cope with that, Jason? How have you, because I know you're not working on your own, how have you able to do this level of work to satisfy your garage customers?
I've had a few people working for me over the years. Sometimes when I first started, I had a guy who used to come in one day a week, and then another friend of mine used to come in one day a week just to help out, really, just to answer the phones, do general stuff. But my main guy, Aaron, he's very, very keen, absolutely fantastic technician, fast, clean, customers love him, polite. He was working in a garage down the road, and he was leaving work at 6 and then coming to work with me in the evenings because he was so enthusiastic to learn. He was a sponge. His dad's in the motor trade as well. I've known his dad for many years. He was just an absolute sponge. Reminded me a lot of myself. He just wanted to know, I'll do that. I'll take that apart. I'll do that, because he wanted to understand how it worked. And, after several years, we were doing so much in the evening again, that he had a bit of a disagreement with his old boss, and he had the opportunity to leave. So he just rocks up one day and said, "I'm working for you." I was like, "Brilliant, let's do it." And I've taught him a lot of stuff. I'm not a teacher, by the way, but I try to explain things properly and in a way people can understand it. And it kind of works to an extent because he has learned a lot of stuff. We were both initially doing diagnostics and, this is going back to the Ford thing. We're both initially doing diagnostics and repair. And I monitor my hours quite closely at work, because that's the thing with diagnosis. You can lose a day. You need to be fully aware of what you're doing, at any one time. Otherwise you're like, well, I've been working my butt off all week here and I've earned like 300 quid. What gives? Which is the problem with diagnosis, isn't it? There's no set labor time. You fit a set of pads, whatever, look it up on Autoday, 0.9 of an hour. Brilliant. It's 0.9 of an hour. But diagnosis, you can't give a time because you don't really know how long until you've actually fixed the problem. It's only at that point you go, I spent that much time on it, which I've got another thing to add to that later about the paradox of diagnostics. And we were working simultaneously, but we weren't making as much money as we should have been. Not so much money, but this is probably the bad way to explain it more. We weren't utilizing our time as well as we should. Okay. And I quite quickly figured out that although Aaron is very, very good at diagnostics and he's very good at wiring faults and stuff, a lot of things, like we said, he would be trying to use Otis, say, and he was struggling to navigate through Otis. And obviously I've been doing this for, at the time, probably 30 years. I can't transfer 30 years worth of information to someone. Doesn't matter how much of a sponge you are in 3 years. It's just not possible. And I've been, as yourself, learning as I go, like I alluded to earlier on. When something new comes out, I will learn at my own time and learn it. So I'm constantly learning and keeping up, but hopefully remembering all the stuff that's happened in the past and all the things in the past. Now, he's obviously jumped in the motor trade when CATs, fuel injection, ECUs, that's all there. So he's got no previous knowledge of anything. So anything old comes in, he's absolutely lost. And I do even now go, oh no, this is this. He's like, wow, I didn't even know that existed, And, but getting back, I've drifted off there a little bit. Getting back to the point is, he was taking longer than I would because I just flick through it without thinking, like you do, like you drive a car without thinking. So what we tried was we monitored it for a while, and we figured out that all the diagnosis initially, especially programming keys, anything like that, dealer tool, I do it. And as soon as it comes mechanical, I push it over to Aaron, and he is so quick and so good at doing mechanical stuff. Still some diagnosis in it. He might take something out and look at it and go, oh, I think that's wrong or whatever. But we found out the efficiency has gone right up. So I'm doing my bit and he's doing his bit. Now, if I'm on holiday, he can jump in and do my bit. And same as he's on holiday, I can jump in and, if I have to, do his bit. But the best use of time and efficiency is definitely 100%. The one person that does diagnosis does that, and then the other guy does what he's good at. But that's the general sort of point I've been trying to get across, with not just in my workshop, in the motor trade as general, and not just people working in the motor trade, even the people you're using outside the motor trade, advertising, accountants, people like that. Let the people do their thing, and it definitely, I can prove it with figures and workshop hours and bookable hours and income that it definitely 100% works the best for that. I've now got another guy, Liam, that works for me part-time, and he's doing the stuff now that's kind of beneath Aaron. So he'll drive to somewhere to get something or go and pick something up, or he might spend a day cleaning some carbon off an engine or chatting, whatever. But and he answers the phone and stuff like that, because at the minute, I try not to get involved in phone calls because it burns up a lot of time for people telling me stuff that they could have told anybody. But unfortunately, people want to speak to me because of my name, but that for me is a waste of my time. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Like, I don't want to speak to the customer or a waste of my time. I mean, it's a waste of my diagnosis time, because if I'm on the phone, I'm not fixing somebody's car. So there's other people need to be doing those things that I don't really need to do. And that, pushing forward, I believe that's the way for all garages. If you've got a guy good at diagnostics, let that guy do diagnostics. You got a guy that's good at fitting brakes, let him fit brakes. Servicing, do that. And there's some interchangeability, but keep your people working where they need to be. And that is definitely the way, in my opinion. Yeah, 100%.
So it's the right bums on the right seats, or the right people in the right job. So if they've got a natural bent or a talent for doing this, mechanical is one of those things. I'm often in awe of people that can, when you spot a really good mechanic, you go, oh my God, right? You can see hand skills, motor skills, or their strip and fit, or the way they get stuff apart, or the way they approach the job. There's something in that brain and the hand skill coordination that makes somebody be able to do it. And, you flip the other way, if you pick the diagnostic process and problem solving, there's a lot of brain power involved in diagnostics in terms of logic and in terms of processing information and in terms of recall and drawing conclusions and planning stuff out. And you can't necessarily make, and I think, going back to garages, why garages can't necessarily succeed at doing the complex diagnosis is partly because of the people. If you haven't got the right person and that person hasn't got the ability, or isn't geared up to do that, you're never going to make them a diagnostic guy, no matter how much tools you give them, if they're not naturally, biased to that way. So it's really interesting to hear that you've done that in terms of streaming different people to different jobs, which makes your business overall more efficient. It is one of those things, I think, a lot of garages that have grown up as you've progressed from being a one-man band to now being the business that you're in. It's very difficult often to move away from that telephone. If somebody wants to speak to the boss, and even if it's just booking a car in, they ask for you by name because they always ever have done. And it's a bit of a habitual thing that, can I speak to Jason? You go, well, what's it concerning? Oh, I need to book a car in. Yeah, I can. And your man that's doing that now can help them with that. But it's a very interesting trying to keep you efficient. So you are best at fixing cars, staying in your lane, really cracking through those jobs. And I think that's one of the challenges that garages that are growing find really difficult, to identify what you actually need to be a better business and then put that person in place to do that job that you need them to do to enable you to do the thing that you're doing. So, hats off that you've managed to achieve that. And I think garage land altogether is in a bit of a crisis, aren't they, for recruiting and, filling vacancies for, if you see mechanics jobs or technicians jobs, you could look at every single garage up and down the country almost, and somebody's got a need for a garage and a technician. And even at that level of mechanical stuff, garages looking to employ somebody to do diagnostics, it's very challenging, isn't it, to find somebody with that right sort of mindset to be able to expand their services, if you like, into more diagnostics. I think even finding mechanical people that can do mechanical stuff is a challenge in itself. And I guess, if somebody's left a garage, I suppose we find it with customers here where they had a good guy working with them that was able to do a set level of work. He's moved on. The booking side of their business still thinks that they've got that capability. So they're still sort of doing diag. They're still taking those jobs on. Yet Joe, who used to do all the diags, now gone. And Fred, who's a brilliant guy at clutches and cam belts and tires and servicing, can't cut the mustard. He can't do that. And in fact, the mechanical guy ends up leaving because he's put under pressure. He's now having to do diag. He hates wiring. He hates electrical faults. He doesn't want to touch the bloody scan tool. And, the garage very quickly can, by having the wrong person trying to do the wrong job, can also, potentially lose a good employee by trying to get them to do work that they're just not able to do. And I don't know, Jason, I often look at advertisements and people recruiting, technician wanted. And I look down the advert, it says technician must be able to do servicing, repairs, tyres, cam belts, clutches, exhaust, MOT tester, and diagnostics and fault finding. I'm going, hang on a minute, you are looking for a unicorn there. Nobody exists.
Yeah.
Which is what I mean. I think if you said, I'm looking for a technician that can do fault finding and diagnostics, right, you've got that right. I'm looking for an MOT tester, right, you've got that right. I'm looking for a good general technician that can do, you've got that right. But when I see the adverts that are crossing into the diag world, even, I'm going, you've got nobody that is doing diag will want to be doing timing belts and clutches. They're going to want to be doing diag flat out because they love that sort of work, and that's what they're. And if you start putting them on MOTs, and my own experience of working with my old service manager in the Ford garage, a guy called Pete Ricketts, and I had a conversation with Pete one day. Said, I'm going to leave if you give me servicing and repairs to do, I'm not interested. But I said, I've got an issue that I want to do all the tricky stuff, so load that on me, but I'm not going to be losing out to the guy that's buzzing through interim services and making bonus. So you need to find a way that gives me recompense for taking all of that stuff. And it sounded a bit like your story, really, where you would do all the horrid work to enable the guys that could pump through the hours to get the hours done. That was a position I managed to get myself in. And this guy, Pete, sort of saw that, and we'd got an arrangement going that I would do the horrid work, but I I would be essentially non-productive, or I would be on a different sort of labour rate, because I agree, you cannot be an all makes all person everything. You have to, I think with the Diag, you're looking for a special sort of character there, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of thing I've been trying to say all along, really. Maybe not 10 years ago, but certainly now it's become such a specialist part of the motor trade. The skill level, the tools you need to use, the dedication you need to put in, the understanding of the systems, and cars, even in the last 5 years, have become exponentially more complicated. AdBlue systems, SCR cats, hybrids, mild hybrids, PHEVs, whatever's out there, full electric vehicles. And you can't expect someone, especially someone that's not trained, someone that's been in the motor trade 20 years. And I used to say this to my boss in the bike shop. There'd be a new model will come out and he'd go, "Do I need to send you on a new model course, really?" And I didn't wake up this morning knowing all about it, did I? They've spent 2-3 years developing this thing with all the latest stuff. This massive factory built this new Kawasaki, all the latest technology in it. I didn't go to bed and wake up and go, "Oh yeah, I know all about that." So the motor trade is its own worst enemy for things like this. They think they can take someone on, like you said, that job that you said advertised. I mean, I was going through it. That's like 5 separate jobs. It's not one job. It's 5 separate jobs there. And people need to be, recompensed for their skill set as well. Someone who's just doing diagnostics should be paid for that skill level, like a specialist at a hospital. An oncologist is paid more than a nurse. That's not being derogative to the nurse. It's a totally different skill set. So they need to be, rewarded for that skill set and that level of intelligence, if you like, and that commitment to learning. And that's a lot of garage owners. They just want to pay 25, 30 grand a year, and they expect their man who's never been on a training course to do all these things. Well, why can't you do that? I like you said, I bought you a £3,000 scan tool last year. Well, why can't you do that? And if any garage owners are listening to this, you need to think to yourself, if I really want to do this, then I need to find that special bloke. I need to find that Aaron or like yourself, James, and I need to pay them well, and I need to keep them trained, and I need to buy them that kit. If you're not prepared to do that, then don't do any of it. Just don't do it. To take that diagnostics banner off your marketing, off your board, take it off, because you're advertising something that you can't do. And the sooner garages realize that, then the better for them, because again, they're making money on what they can do. And let's face it, the only reason anyone's in business is to make money. We're not in it for the glory. We're not in it for the kudos. We're not in it for the down the pub, or, "Oh, you can fix my mate's car. I know you do it cheap." No, we're not in it for any of that. We're all in it, whether you like it or not. We're all in this to make money. And that, if something can be proven to make you money easier, do the easy thing. Make money the easy way. That's what I say. And, this is obviously aimed at people in the motor trade. You need to kind of understand that. And going forward, these things are only going to get more expensive and more complicated. So if you're not up to speed now, the chances of you catching up and getting up to speed are becoming smaller and smaller, infinitely more smaller as time goes on. That's my opinion. Whether it's right or wrong, but it seems to work for me.
No, I think you're right, Jason. I think my advice, we often have conversations when people are thinking about, they've got somebody in their business that they're looking to expand their skill or knowledge level. And we talk about, equipment and training, and say, if you spent £3,000 on a scan tool, you probably need to budget £6,000 on training now over the next 2 years to get that character into all of the fundamental knowledge that he needs to be able to get a scope out, to be able to competently test or check or do some systems check, to get his knowledge level into the process of diagnosis, to enable him to have the confidence to run that test. And you're probably looking at a 2-year project of a guy that's half handy, that's showing a bit of intellect and a bit of natural talent in doing diag, that's a 2-year task. So if you go from no diag to diag and you want to do it properly, even at the level where you're competent up to the point you need a dealer tool, it is a 2-year investment project. And that's time away every 6 or 8 weeks on a training course. And that's having software updates on that machine. And that's also giving the character in work enough time to get it wrong, to learn how to do it right. And one of the things that we often see with the garage that are looking, they've done a lot of the right stuff, but maybe it comes down to the fact that they're still looking for that technician to be 80 or 90% efficient when they're booking diagnostic jobs in for an hour slot, and they're expecting him to get the answer within an hour and then sell the mechanical repair. And you know yourself, some of the complex diagnostic jobs, you could be 3 or 4 hours. They then look back in retrospect and say, "Wow, Joe's been on that job for 4 hours. You can't charge the customer 4 hours because we pitched it to them as a quick plug-in and an 80 or 90 quid job." And all of a sudden, poor old technician in the workshop is now under the pressure. Well, you've had all this training and you've got this tool and we're not making any money. And it sort of comes to the point where they're not selling the service correctly. They haven't really got the resources to do it. And the character hasn't quite been trained enough to be a solo operating diagnostic guy. And I think that journey, if you're going to get into diag up to the competent level, and what I'm going to say is to the competent level where they know where to quit and they're maybe doing 70 or 80% of the diag that comes in, they can do competently in-house. They've probably got multiple scanners, maybe 1 or 2 dealer tools, and they're still even at that point going, this is a specialist job. We need to get this over to Jason. It's got a technical bulletin and there's a software update for this. That needs to go over there. Or we've reached the end of the point. We know it's nothing simple. We've had a good death with this diagnostic job. We need to get it over to the samurai that is Jason, because that's now his skill level. And even realizing the garage man that wants to get serious about diag, that spends 8, 9, 10,000 quid on equipment and training, is still going to be maybe 30% of the jobs he's not going to be able to do. I think a lot of garages don't realize that. They've not looked at that as a big picture. They've gone bottom up, scan tool, Autel, subscriptions, technician that says he wants to do it. We're now in business with diag, and they're setting themselves up for failure there straight away, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I believe that even 2 years is that's highly optimistic. Certainly for myself, even though I was doing diagnosis, it was more than 2 years to do all the Bosch training. And that was aside from the training with people like yourself and the other training I was doing in the motor trade. It was a lot longer than that. And also going back to what you said, they could be competent and they could be, very competent. They could have the dealer tool, could have everything, but therein you run into a problem. And what sprung into my mind there was I've got key cutting machines, key programming machines, EEPROM readers, you name it. I've got it. I basically got everything you can have, and sometimes you get to a point where you need to go, oh, I need a key. But we can't make keys. Or let's just take a Ford, for instance. You've identified it's the ECU. You need to put a new ECU in or instrument cluster. Or a Jaguar Land Rover. You get to the thing, you buy it, you get to it, you go to it, needs 2 keys. Oh. For me, I got a key cutting machine, a key program. That's no problem. I'll just burn a key off and do it. But I cut keys and do key programming, but I don't do keys. If someone rings up, can you come out to my car? I could, but I don't, because again, there's plenty of people doing that. I bought a key machine, and I'm using this as an example, to enable me to carry out a task where I otherwise would have got stopped at. So where you're saying your guy could have gone to the point where I've identified it needs a new instrument cluster on a Ford. We've bought the instrument cluster. We're confident in it. We've plugged it in. It's fixed our fault. It all works, but we can't start the car. It's okay. I've got IDS. I'll now go in and learn PATS or FDRS. You need a second key. Shit. And that you've instantly hit a wall, because there's always that extra bit of equipment you need. And if you're going to go into it, you need to be fully expectant that not only are you going to need to buy dealer tools, I think you used the term beyond dealer tools. And I've got a lot of those beyond dealer tools, AVDI, SMOC, AutoHex, HexProg, all these cloning tools, read ISN numbers, clone stuff, because you'll get to a point, even if you're the absolute mustard of diagnosis and you've got all the dealer tools and all your snap-on tools, everything else, there's going to come a point, probably within a few weeks, you're going to get stuck because you haven't got that beyond dealer tool and you're stuck. And now yeah, you can get around it with the Ford situation. You ring up Ford, order a key, but that's 2 days away at best. A Jaguar Land Rover, maybe 10 days away. So now you've got the car there. Customer, we found that fault. We put your new dashboard in. Brilliant. You should have your car back by the end of the day.
Yeah. Yes, we've had a good death.
Yeah. And that's exactly where I would come in. They'd go, oh, yeah, I get quite a lot of this. So we've bought a new dash, we bought a new ECU, but we're stuck, or a new ABS control unit, or whatever it might be. And, we can't do your Fords, for instance, with the PAT system. That's another one off the top of my head. The ABS is part of the security chain. We've tried to program it with Autel, but now we can't start the car. You're not going to. Have you got 2 keys? No. Well, you're going to need 2 keys, or I'll have to make you a key. Right. Okay. We're sending it down. And then I'll use that piece of equipment to get us out, that situation quickly without having to wait 10 days for another key, So that's the point. You can be absolutely mustard and brilliant, have 90% of the tools, but still get stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's always that surprise, isn't there? There's always that kick in or that stinger, which you have to be prepared for. And I guess in a way, that's the mindset that you're accepting. You know that somewhere along the line, you're going to come up against an issue, a challenge, or where the job isn't quite straightforward, or, you find the point that actually, if you do that, you also have to do this. And if you don't do those two together, it just won't function. It won't work. And I think that's the realism of your experience over all this time, Jason, that unless you've done it all the way through and that that's exactly the same, probably like me, I'm not surprised if you get a bump in the road and you go, okay, well, that's a surprise, but I'm not really surprised. But now we need something else, or we need to go off and do a different thing. And yeah, your garage owner, I suppose, that's trying to specialise or do a bit more diagnosis that's not even in their register of understanding. You don't realise that it's not as simple as what a guy once explained it to me when I worked at Krypton. Very, very clever hardware software engineer, Pete Holden, his name was, and he once explained to me when we were in the early days of computers there with Krypton. He said, it's not electronic Lego. You can't just bolt this stuff together. It doesn't just join up. There's all this mellifluous software jiggery-pokery that goes on to make it work. And do you know what? If you breathe wrong, it will all stop working and you won't know why. And I often think with the diag programming or coding or whatever it is, you're going, at any minute it could just all shit the bed and end up worse than when it came in. It drove in and now it's just a pile of bits. It doesn't work. And like you say, the Beyond Dealer tools is the only way out of that. The only way you're going to enter full-on ninja mode there. You get the ninja stars out now and start recovery mode. So I think that is the point where those you will inevitably end up in that situation. I'm thinking as an average repair garage, they are the jobs you don't want to get anywhere near. That is beyond learning. That's almost mental breakdown stage there, isn't it? Where your car and your customer are so far up your backside that you can see the headlights coming out of your nostrils. Realistically. So no, it's the investment is mighty in training as well, Jason. So equipment is wise. You also have to have that experience, even if you shelled out all that cash and you spent 7 or 8 years going on all the training and learning it, you still have to have the hand-to-hand combat skills. You have to have been in the trenches for those number of years to learn all of that stuff, like you said about the PATS keys. It's not, you couldn't go from a general repair garage to diagnostic specialist in anything less than a handful of years, I would think, with a lot of, and if you dedicated your life to it, you might get there in 5 or 6 years. So it's not something a general garage is going to be able to do. And I think that's probably the realization. Garages have to decide when is enough. And that 2-hour rule that you've come up with there is pretty awesome. Yeah. Jason, what do you do for fun? So if we take aside, life at the garage, you're in a pretty stressful environment there most of the time. I liken it to, and Bev, my wife that worked with me early doors, couldn't believe that every phone call was stress and aggravation. There's always a story, there's a drama, somebody's upset, and I've got a pretty blasé attitude that, do you know what, it's a broken car, it's going to be something will fix it. Yeah, I know you've had this trouble, and I know it's been worked up your backside for 9 months, and I know you spent 10 other garages, and you've already spent £4,000 before you come here, and I've got this opportunity, and I'm here now to to help you, and what's gone before we have to just park. But, there is undoubtedly a level of stress that come with every job. I think every job's got creates its own orbit, and therefore there are things spinning around it. And that's generally customers and a garage. And hopefully they're opposite sides and they're spinning around this car. But inevitably there's a lot of stress with this job, isn't there? I don't think you can avoid that. So what do you do out of work, Jason, to switch off or to be the man that you are outside of fixing cars? What is it you get up to?
Well, first off, you're right about the stress. I'm quite lucky, and Aaron, it works for me. We tend to thrive on stress in the workplace. If we're not got too many cars in and too many problems, we're looking at each other like, what's gone wrong here? What's gone wrong? Why? So we need at least a couple of headaches a week to keep going. But one thing I learned a long time ago from a very clever man was, when you leave work, just leave it behind. And like you, people think I'm a bit offy, a bit blasé, but it's not my car. I didn't cause the problem. I didn't make the car, and I don't decide how much the parts are. These are not my problems. They're a you problem, not a me problem. And, someone else's bad planning or poor maintenance or thing is not my problem. I'm there to fix it and help them out. And if you take that kind of ethos and explain, I'm trying to help you out here, your emergency is not my emergency. It's not, and you kind of be like that. It certainly goes a long way to leaving that kind of stress at home. We both know someone, I won't say his name, one of the loveliest men I've ever met in the motor trade. And that guy will go home and fret himself, probably won't even sleep for 2 nights because he's got a car and there's nothing to do with him. And he's got a problem that he can't figure out. And he's literally pulling his hair out. And I'm like, don't worry about it. It's just a car. You didn't cause the problem, so don't worry about it. And I say to him, just go home, be with your wife, whatever. Just leave it be. And that's what I do. I leave work, and once I've left work, it's done with. I'll worry about it tomorrow when I'm at work. If I worry about it at all, in all honesty, I'm a great believer in not problems, are solutions. We all know people, and this is going back to while I'm still at work, that will be in a garage and there'll be 3 or 4 people standing around discussing how bad it's gone wrong, discussing the problem, but no one's actually coming up with a solution. Make a decision and go with it. It might be the wrong one, but at least you're doing something. Discussing what's gone wrong and why it's gone wrong is not fixing anything. And this is, generally for us with life, I believe, instead of making problems and talking about it, let's think about a solution. Let's think of a positive way. And being positive is, that's with diagnosis, especially, you've got to make a decision. Yeah, I'm positive. I notice I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to hesitate. I'm going to go forward. Hesitation is, they say in a film, fear is a mind killer, but in diagnostics, hesitation's the mind killer. Because if you're umming and ahhing and you're hesitating, you will never make a decision to go forward, and you'll just stand there, just make it, just looking at it. Yeah. When I leave work, I leave it behind. Obviously, as you're probably aware, I love my motorbikes. I don't ride them as much as I used to, mainly because I've had so many motorbike accidents. I'm really creaky now. Obviously, quite a lot of people watching this will know I've got a fairly decent car, Nissan GTR, which is, over 1200 horsepower. I like driving that. I've got a boat as well. I live by the sea. Any opportunity, out on the boat. Got a couple of kids as well. Teenagers now. Spend as much time with them as I can, really. But in all honesty, when I leave work, I try to think about the motor trade as little as possible. Unless I'm specifically learning something that I enjoy, which is not for a particular job per se, but just something new, then I won't have anything to do with it. I don't look at emails. I won't answer the phone. I work from, I'm at work before 8:30 to 5:30, Monday to Friday. I will talk to you about cars then. I will fix cars. I will discuss cars. I think about cars. I live, eat, breathe cars then. But when that time comes, that weekend comes, I don't want to know. I don't even want to know. Don't even talk to me about it, because I'm done with it. And I think everybody in any job needs to be able to leave that behind for your own sanity, really, because otherwise you never shut off, you never stop working. And I was guilty of that in the beginning. I would work ridiculous hours, and I would go to sleep thinking about this problem and suddenly start up in the middle of the night, go, oh, why didn't I test that? And, I've learned over the years that, just to leave that behind. I mean, if I can, I can tell you the point when that happened was I wasn't working so many hours as I used to when I first started. When on my own, I was working from 7 a.m. to 11 at night, and I was working 6 days a week. And I kind of cut that out because I had 2 young kids. So I tried to cut that out as much as possible. I never worked Sundays, but the kids were getting older. In hindsight, I wish I hadn't done that because I missed a lot of time with my children growing up, important time. And that time is way more important than your business and anyone's car. No one else's car should be more important than time with your children and stuff like that. It doesn't matter whose car it is, doesn't matter what it is. It shouldn't be more important, or any job should be. And we went through COVID. And to be honest, I had enough work to keep working through COVID, but we ran out of parts. Literally, parts dried up. And I was going to walk with my kids. It was really, really hot during COVID, and we did a lot of walking. And I did a lot of self, what's the word used for it? Asking myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I just had this epiphany. I was like, why am I working all these hours? Why am I working Saturday? If I can't make a good living, I know I'm good at what I do. I know I'm fair at what I charge. I've got plenty of work. If I can't make this work Monday to Friday at 8:30 to 5:30, then regardless of how great I am at fixing cars or whatever, how good or whatever, I'm not running a valid business. And that was it. In COVID, I rung Aaron up and said, right, when we go back, no more Saturdays, no more 5:30. I don't care. That door's getting shut. We're out of there. And my life, I cannot tell you how much my life has changed for the better. More relaxed, more positive, more happy. Even though I didn't really bring the stress home, I just shut off to it. And that's the way you got to be. Absolutely. In my opinion. So I know when people are starting out a business, you have to put maybe the extra hours in here and there, but this is more aimed at young people or people with families. Don't do what I did and work through your kids growing up, because you will never get that time back. And there's the most important thing that anyone has on this earth is time. It doesn't matter how much money you got, you can never buy more. And you can be as rich as you like. If you run out of time, it means a shit all. You're out of it, and time is there.
Yeah, time is there. No, it's great advice there, Jason. I think that discipline in being able to, focus on the different elements of your life. And you make a really good point there. I think people, maybe if they got their charging wrong, having to put hours in to make a living, it isn't right. If you can't make a healthy living in the 9 to 5 or the 8:30 to 5:30. Yeah, you need to tweak your business. It's not, you're not doing it. It's not a problem, but it is a problem. You have to decide actually that, you have to set that up correctly. And that's probably, again, where people, I think when I've had conversations with guys transitioning from a job, and then having a sideline to making a business, a couple of things always jump out. And the first one is most of your customers are with you because you're not charging VAT and you're cheap, because you don't need to charge a full whack because you're in a full-time job and you've got no premises. And then making that transition, then your prices automatically have to go up because you've got all the overheads to cope with. And if you don't put your prices up, the only thing you've got more of is a bit more labor time. So you end up, doing more labor for a lower hourly rate to try and make it up, when you should actually go, stop all that. My labor rate is too wrong. I think we had a conversation with Andy Saber, and in that, really the cost of doing business. So what does it cost you to be there? What do you need in terms of profit aspirations? What are you looking to make from the business that you're in? And has to be set in the beginning of your labor rate. And I think, as you've done there successfully, making it work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you've got a great business. And secondly, switching off, I find the same thing really, Jason. I have to not think about, I could gladly geek out about cars and technology all day, every day, and not sicken of it. But I have to realize actually there's more to life. So a bit like you, I quite like the outside. We live in the hills, so I'm out on the bike and I have to switch off. I find it brilliant time. Actually breathing through your ass is a great way of not focusing on anything apart from not dying as you're going up these hills on the bike. And I think that's a really, a really good distraction. And it gives you that ability to think about the value of looking out over a vista. You must be like I used to sail a little bit, and I quite like being out there on the water, and you're just looking out at this. Maybe you're looking back towards the land, and you're out there and you're going, what an awesome. I think you forget when you're up against the stress of daily life that you stop and take in just the surroundings. Nature's an amazing place, and it gives you that time to reflect on, kids, family life, the aspirations that you've got, and more to it, enjoying, your hobbies, taking up other things. So it's important to sharpen the saw. And I think for me, I found going back to work on a Monday after having a successful weekend and not thinking about cars, actually you're more revved up. You hit the ground running at 8:30 on Monday, then fully revved up and recharged, where if you pulled an all weekender, Monday is a complete chore. And I think that's the body telling you're doing it wrong. And I think the clue is like you say, listening. And COVID was a great opportunity, wasn't it, for people just to stop. The planet stopped and gave us a chance to step back and go, is this right? And it's amazing to see that you've taken full advantage of that and a loving life and are making a success of it. Jace, a couple of things then. What do you think, because we're coming to the end of our chat now, I'm interested to know what you think in terms of challenges. And we talked a bit about technology. We talked about, if we're thinking about garages out in garage land, what do you think, in the next handful of years, biggest challenges are for garages generally that they're going to have to find a way of overcoming? What's coming around the corner that they should be thinking about preparing, or what's sort of hitting people now that they need to be cognizant of and maybe think of a plan?
Yeah, like we've alluded to already, good staff is going to be one of them. Finding young, enthusiastic people that want to come into the motor trade at any level is getting more and more difficult. There's no glory in it anymore. It's not seen, people don't want to do it. They'd rather do something like we're doing now, sit in front of a computer or do whatever. It's a hard job. I don't care when it's very physical. It's mentally demanding. It's difficult on the body, and people and generally underpaid. Like you just said just now, get your hourly rate right. One of the reasons I charge as much as I do is I value my skill set, and I think we're good value for money because we're quicker, which is a diagnostic paradox again. But the other thing is I pay my staff well. I pay my staff very well because I know I need them and I need them there. And what's going to happen in the future with the struggle is a lot of garages are charging way too little, and they need now, if they're going to go forward, to be thinking, right, I need to do something now. I need these clever guys. I need these good guys. But these clever, good guys, they're not going to work for 10, 12, 15 pound an hour. They're going to want 20, 25 pound an hour. Now, a lot of garage owners, I can see them now going, it's rubbish. No one pays that. I do. I pay that to my staff. And I tell you why, because I charge right, and I charge right because I bill right and I know what I'm doing. Now, if you're not able to pay your staff a decent salary, then effectively, and I don't care how long you've been in business or whatever, you're not running your business efficiently or as well as you could. And what will happen is in the future is your guys, or no new guys coming in, the skill shortage is going to get so bad because people are going to retire, get old, leave, that you won't have a business because you won't have anybody working for you. And it's far easier to incrementally put your charges up year after year after year than it is in 5 years to go, oh hell, I need to be charging £120 an hour, but I've only been £35 an hour to Doris down the road for 25 years. And they're going to be like, oh my God, the jump is too much. People need to now, if you're going to especially do diagnosis and the more specialist side, you need to charge accordingly. Not only so you're making money, but so you can pay your staff accordingly, so you can keep your staff, and if you're charging more money, you can afford to send them training, and you can afford to invest in new tools. And that's, in my opinion, the biggest problem that's going to come in the motor trade is the skill shortage. And a lot of it is, quite frankly, brought on by the motor trade itself. Because they don't value. We all know garage owners that just think they can just pick a mechanic up the road like that. Oh, he can fit that. He can do that. Like we've said, no one person's doing everything, and you've got to pay them. And garage owners and people that run garages need to realize they need to pay a decent salary to get decent people. Otherwise, you're going to end up with you pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys, and eventually them monkeys won't be able to work on a car. And that leads me on to the next one. Car technology is evolving so fast, as you know, so fast at the minute that even specialists like myself and we're struggling to keep up, and we're at the pinnacle of it. We're there all the time. We're in the trenches of it all the time. And it seems like every day there's some new piece of technology, some new procedure you've got to follow, to work on a car. And I think it's a Vauxhall now. I can't remember off the top of my head. If you change your brake pads without telling the ABS you've changed your brake pads, but you run the procedure, you then, you goose the ABS unit, you need a new ABS unit. Now, you need to be aware of these things, but you're only aware of these things because you've got information and training, etc., etc. And garages really need to get on this information bandwagon. Even general servicing, they need to be aware of the technology change. It's not long. We're not going to have brake fluid, are we? We're going to have electronic brakes, fully electronic brakes. We're going to have fully electric cars. But I know people are like, oh, it'll never happen, but it is happening because the motor manufacturers have dedicated whole factories they've stopped petrol and diesel and changed them to electric. They don't spend that kind of money on investment if they're not serious about making electric cars. So as a garage owner going forward, especially more in the 30, maybe the garage owner's 30 years old, maybe less, 30 to 40, they need to be thinking, in my lifetime, we're going to be seeing hybrids or full electric vehicles. I need at least a couple of guys here trained. We need the equipment, the insulated tools, all the specialist equipment to be able to do that, because any day now people are going to get caught out because of this this technology explosion, if you like, for want of a better word. And people, I don't believe that even 90% of garages are ready for it in any way, shape or form. They're just not. And the problem is, we're moving away from diagnostics, but going back to their bread and butter money, fitting brakes, tires. If you've got a full electric car and you've got a procedure to take the brakes off, you need to be aware of that procedure, even from a servicing. This isn't diagnostics. This is just thing. And you need the guys trained to work on that, to be able to do that kind of work. And I don't see, certainly around me, that anybody is putting any investment into the future at all. They're almost blinkered that no, cars aren't going to change. I've been fixing cars for 30 years. I don't understand it. And why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why are they making it so complicated? But whether you think it's right or not, it's happening. The other problem in the motor trade, but this is more of a problem from customers, is a lot of people in the motor trade, certainly around my area, they're getting to the age of retirement. And they're done. They've had it. And they've bought the garage and they've got such and such want to build 3 houses on it. So the garage is getting sold. It's getting turned into houses or a supermarket. Tesco's a good one. It's done a couple of garages around here. And, the garages are disappearing. So not only are garages going to struggle for technicians and people that can work on cars, there's more and more cars every day, every week. There's more cars, isn't they? They're exponentially, you drive down the road now, you can't drive down the road for cars. There's way, way more cars than there is people with the ability to work on them. And in 5-10 years time, you imagine that when a lot of people have retired, they haven't invested, they've just given up. The garages that are going are going to have just so many customers. I don't believe the garage trade's ever going to be short customers. It's going to be the other way around. It's going to be, oh my God, we can't cope with the customers. So people, especially younger people, need to be thinking, do you know what? We're going to have a real boom here in a few years of this type of thing. And they need to be forward thinking with this, because it's no secret. They need to be planning this and planning what they're going to do instead of reacting to the situation. That's what I'm saying. And that's basically the only advice I can give, really. I've only got, another 15 years and I'm out, so I don't care, basically.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I think, the shortage of garage, if you look at, we've got a Transit here that's been pulled from another garage, and the guy had tried to book it into Ford, and they were quoting, I think he couldn't get into Ford. Essentially, the booking is so far into the distance that it's just not realistic. If you've got a work van and you need that thing realistically. I think already, dealers being able to do jobs quickly has disappeared because they're struggling for staff. They're short-staffed. If we look at all the dealers in the area, they've all got recruitment campaigns active. So dealers are struggling. Therefore, cars that were maybe going into the dealer now can't be serviced and managed. So they're looking for an aftermarket garage. Aftermarket garages are suffering from retirements where, like you say, the business has turned into a supermarket or houses. So I think you're right. I think the environment for garage businesses is to be brave, to know your worth and to charge accordingly so you can pay your team, you can recruit and train. It's very, very wise words. I think garage garage owners can often be convinced looking inside and looking out at the garages what the other garages are charging without necessarily doing the groundwork about their own business, their own proposition, how they should phrase that, how they're marketing to others. Your marketing that you do, and I love the posts that you've got, the storyboarding of explaining what you're doing is awesome because it's explaining exactly your technique. From what I see, garages, not all of them, we can't be that wide looping, but generally garages aren't necessarily that great at marketing their services or extolling the value. If somebody comes to Jace, to your place for service, they know you're going to be expensive, but you're going to be good. And that's the value proposition. I don't care what it costs. Can it be done right? Yes. And I think a lot, it seems to be a trend where garages are more conscious on the price and winning the business rather than actually doing a very good value bit, building a strong business, being able to pay the people. So I would concur. Jason, as a final thought now, we have the opportunity to do magic wishes. So if you could change anything, you're going to give you the option to swoop the magic wand now and change a couple of different things in the industry if you could. They may be things we've talked about. They may be something completely different. But if you could get your wand out and do a swoop and change a couple of things in the industry, what would they be?
My first thing would be the perception of technicians, good technicians. It is slowly changing. Certainly people appreciate what I do personally. But for general technicians, I'm talking about decent, technicians that can actually do a good job. They need to be thought of as actually trained, good, educated people rather than, I get it now. I'll give you, for instance, we both know that I'm doing fairly well. I go on holiday. I'm talking to people on the beach, don't know anything. And this comes up, blah, blah, blah. What do you do? Oh, I'm a solicitor and I'm this, that, and the other. By this time, normally my lad's gone, my dad's got a GTR, my dad's got this, my dad's got that. And they go, what do you do for a living? I go, I'm a mechanic. Oh, you're a mechanic. They're so shocked that a mechanic can, actually be intelligent and have a good job and make a good business. It's almost worldwide. It's every country I've been in. Like, you just own a garage. Oh, is it like a dealership or something? No, it's just a garage, and that perception of everybody, even in the motor trade, people, and I'm talking here when I worked in dealerships and motorcycles, the salesman would be like, oh, you're just a mechanic. Well, I'm a salesman. I'm much more important than you. And everything would be dictated about that. And like, what do you mean you're more important than me? And that whole thing through the motor trade, if I could fix one thing in the motor trade, it would be for people to be, I can't think of the word right now, to sort of be acknowledged for what they are and not looked down on. The other thing on the motor trade at the minute that I would change is, this is to all the motor manufacturers over there, start making it so difficult to do stuff, to log in, to get passwords, to change my password every 7 days. Who cares if someone can log into my ISTA? They've still got to buy a token, changing this, changing that. I've got so many passwords that my head I'm running out of password ideas now. And, it doesn't need to be that difficult. I wish the manufacturers would just get together and just use one method, one way of doing it. If we're going to do security, let's all just agree to do it this way. If we got to pass a course, then let's pass the course. If we got to, prove who we are. Stop making us jump through all these different hoops and have to email this and wait for this and pay for that. That would be my second wish, because as someone that's multi-brand, it literally infuriates me with, it's so difficult and it's needlessly difficult. Yeah. It's needlessly difficult. It doesn't have to be like that. We can have one app on our phone that proves who we are for everybody. It's just, it's just needlessly difficult. Yeah. So that'd be the second thing.
That's a really good point, actually. It's a really good point. Now, I think, to be honest, over maybe the last 10 years or maybe less, I think the OEMs or the manufacturers have sort of acknowledged, haven't they, that decent garages like yourself that are go ahead, that want to be inside the tent, that want to follow the rules, that are happy to buy the gear. I think that they've become more acknowledging that actually the dealer can't cope with this stuff. So if you've got a module that needs programming, or you've got some complex diagnosis, or you've got software that needs updating, or you've got keys that need coding or adding, I find my own feeling is if you pick most of the OEMs there, they're actually going, specialist garage there, guy knows what he's doing. we're thumbs up. If you talk to independent workshop, I bet your reputation with independent workshop is actually quite strong. I hope mine is, where they know this guy is not messing about. He's got all the stuff that you want, and he'll do whatever he needs to be done. The network complies. If you're picking BMW, he's doing all the stuff that you need to do. And I think that they've acknowledged that they need help from the aftermarket to give that on service to their own brand fans, if you like, customers. So yeah, I think on one hand they've made it slightly easier and made the equipment accessible, but I think the IT departments in some of these companies has gone bonkers that you need to send, biometric evidence to be able to log into their service. Hang on a minute, cop on, yeah. So that's a really good one. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the trade is slowly getting there, Jason, with technicians, and you're a good case in point, almost as a poster boy for, intelligent, intellectually capable, highly capable of fixing anything that can come through the door. And I think, you should be congratulated there as a role model. You're not out there in everyone's face. And I'm hoping from this conversation that you'll inspire a few people, because there is a role for intelligent, highly intellectual young men and women to join this industry, to learn this brilliant trade, to have daily challenges, and to make and have a successful business. And I think, you yourself are living evidence that you can change the profile of, never mind just a technician. I am a vehicle technician that can fix all these vehicles. So I think you have to be congratulated to be living that, Jason. I think you are helping to change that. So I would recommend, I'll put your Facebook in the show notes, Jason, and I would really implore any of our listeners to hop on there and have a look, because the stories that you write up, the marketing that you do about the cases that you get involved with, will really give garages and customers a brilliant idea of actually what's involved with what on the surface seems like a simple job. Maybe somebody's had a go at fixing that have been unable to. You really paint a very good picture about the professional level that you go to solve those jobs. So keep that up, because it is awe-inspiring. And it is really useful, I think, for other garages. Jason, we come to our time together now. We've been chatting for an hour and a half, just over. So I'd like to really thank you for your time, for giving up your valuable time of an evening. The insight you've given has been really useful. I'm hoping garages that are maybe thinking about Diag or involved some way, shape or form will have picked some useful hints and tips up and have got a very good insight and in-depth view about what's actually involved to be a diagnostic specialist. Garages in your neighborhood that don't know about you, hopefully now do know about you, and will be learning when to quit the jobs and to get in touch for you to be able to take over and get that successful over the line. In concluding, the picture you paint about being a specialist service for a garage and enabling them to maintain their profitability, I think is awesome. And I think garage owners that are using you can see that, and garage owners across the country that are maybe listening to that need to maybe pick that up as a key message, to find their local specialist and to employ them to do the work that they should be doing, that the garage really shouldn't be doing. So I'd like to just thank you once again, Jason, for appearing. Really appreciate your time and effort and endeavours, and I wish you all the success in the world for your future business.
Thank you, mate. It was an absolute pleasure. If you want to do another one in the future, I'd be happy to do that.
Awesome.
So, I really enjoyed it, and an hour and a half has gone really quickly.
Appreciate that.
Fantastic.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.